morning. I will call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call.
Chair Metcalf? On his way. Vice Chair Beatty? Member Clark? Member Cridland? Member Foster?
I'm present.
Member Grant?
Present.
Member Tattison? Member O'Neill?
Present.
Member Seaborn?
Present.
All right, we have quorum, and Chair Metcalf will be joining us shortly. Back to you.
I'm going to have to get trained. The Niagara Peninsula watershed is situated within the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Attawandarunk, and the Anishinaabeg, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties, number 3, number 4, and 381, and is within the land protected by the Dish and One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, the watershed is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. At the NPCA, we strive for further our commitment to the shared stewardship of the natural resources and deep appreciation of the Indigenous culture and history in the watershed in small ways every day. Better keep that one. Approval of the agenda.
So I've got some notes there for some.
You got some notes here?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll need a motion.
So I'm going to move item 9.2.
Oh, yeah,
after
yeah.
6.1.
Okay.
So we have the presentation. And when Josh does his report at 9.6, he's got a little presentation to share as well.
On 9.6, okay. You will note the addendum includes, first item of the business is the approval of the agenda. You will note that the addendum includes an additional item under the committee reports for the board's consideration. I would also seek a friendly amendment to address item 9.2 immediately following item 6.1, since the presentation speaks to the contents of the discussion report. I will note that our manager, watershed monitoring and reporting, will go over the integrated watershed monitoring and reporting program by sharing a brief slide deck prior to considering the recommendations outlined in item 9.6. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion to approve the agenda with these proposed changes? Anybody up there? Okay, I can't.
Do you, if you want a verbal, Rob will move.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
And I'll second.
Michelle seconding, thank you.
These new reactions buttons are not very good, are they?
Damn do I know. All in favor? Carried. Declarations of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict? Hearing none, there are no conflicts. Are there any, excuse me, are there any proposed amendments to the minutes of June 21st, 2024 full authority meeting. Any amendments? Okay. Seeing none, I will look for a mover and a seconder to approve these minutes. Donna and I need a seconder. Thank you, Rob. Motion that the minutes of the full authority meeting and closed session minutes dated June 21st, 2024 be approved. All in favor? Carried. All right. Chair's update. Well, this should be interesting. There have been lots of exciting initiatives underway at the NPCA over the past month. Earlier this week, thank you for typing this. Earlier this week, our team welcomed folks from the UNESCO to the Niagara Peninsula. I'd like to thank the evaluators, Sarah from Ireland and Jakob from Denmark, for making the trip to our community and taking the time to visit Balls Falls, St. John's, Wainfleet Wetlands, and Morgan's Point throughout their visit. I'd also like to acknowledge our Director, Christie, Manager Powell, and the Niagara Geoparks Manager, Aidan Drum, for their dedication and efforts on this front. NPCA has recently made some staffing announcements I would like to acknowledge. I'd like to congratulate Leanna Lee Yates. Leilani, I'll get it. For accepting the role as Director of Watershed Strategies and Climate Change. We are receiving substantial reports and presentations related to a compelling work that the department has underway today. Director Lee Yates will continue to support our planning development team in the interim. Thank you for your continued dedication to the critical work carried out by these departments and the NPCA overall. Speaking of dedication and compelling leadership, I regret to inform the board that this will be the last meeting of our CAO, Sharma, working along with us. Chandra has, oh, this is, okay. Now we go to here, all right. Yeah, I should look at you. Chandra, your vision and commitment to the conservation efforts are admirable, and I look forward to seeing what's accomplished in the next phase for you. You have led an inspiring path at the NPCA to move forward on, and I think I can speak for all of us when I express immense gratitude for your efforts over the years. Now I'd like to yield the floor to give the CAO an opportunity to say a few words. I am.
Thank you, Chair BT. Good morning, members of the board, members of the community who may be watching the meeting, NPCA partners, and collaborators. I would like to take a moment to express my profound gratitude to the former and current board members for entrusting me with this significant responsibility as your CAO. I would like to thank members of the community for their trust and commitment to the work of Conservation Authority. Members of the media for your support throughout my tenure here, and the community partners for their collaboration. I'm particularly thankful to the exceptional cooperation and support of our municipal partners. This municipal support is an important foundation that enables the Conservation Authority to effectively deliver on their mandate. And finally, I thank the provincial and federal governments for the funding grants we received over the past few years to address significant programming and science gaps within our organization. As I prepare for my departure during the first week of September, I'm very proud of NPCA's accomplishments, our financial and operational stability, and our sound policies and procedures, our funding diversification, and principles of true cost accounting, our progressive work to address climate change, our solid long-term direction on many of our watershed programs, which also comes with several confirmed multi-year funding commitments to deliver on our commitments for tree planting, restoration, shoreline resilience, drinking water source protection, etc. Our infrastructure upgrades in our parks and conservation areas to address some of the asset gaps. This is an ongoing area. We need to do more, and I hope the funding keeps coming to do that. The significant progress we have made in securing ecologically significant land. By the end of this year, if we keep going the way we have progressed, we would have achieved almost 100% of our targets set in our strategy in about 4 years instead of 10. So that is a significant accomplishment. And I do credit staff for their amazing work in this area. A new home for our staff with good talent management strategy, genuine community partnerships, and especially with our indigenous communities. Our staff, NPCA staff, deserve credit for all those significant milestones that I've just talked about. I'm particularly pleased that I'm leaving behind a very skilled and capable team of professionals. They are committed to maintaining a service-oriented culture and client-centric culture. I'm confident that this important work we have started will continue with the same momentum and rigor with the leadership of our exceptional staff at all levels of the organization. Over the past few years, we have proven how much is possible if we keep our focus on the big purpose of Conservation Authority. The positive impact of Conservation Authority's work in our communities and watershed cannot be underestimated. It cannot be underestimated considering our recent challenges, our environmental challenges, and land use challenges. Our success comes as a direct result of our shared values. Indeed, we are better together. So, please support the work of our foundation, our Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation, for the long-term health of our watershed, for the natural heritage, and for creating the next generation of environmental leaders. I'm going to be watching our good work from the other side of the watershed, and I wish you all the best. And I'm here to help anytime needed as part of the broader Conservation Authority family. So thank you so much for all the support I've received in my almost 5 years here. Thank you.
Sharma, on behalf of the board, past and present, thank you, thank you, thank you. There are 2 items of correspondence for the board to receive today. For the board's information, Conservation Ontario informed their membership that the notice of decision was posted ERO 019-8369, and the feedback submitted was not incorporated into the decision. The comments submitted were distributed for reference, as we see included in the agenda. I would like a motion to receive the 2 items of correspondence, item 5.1 and item 5.2. Michelle, thank you. And Rob, thank you. All in favor? What's he doing on the end? Oh, okay. Carried. Presentations, Section 6. Watershed Natural Asset Analysis and Valuation. We have Tara Gaddy, Program Coordinator, Watershed Strategies and Climate Change, and Amy Taylor of Green Analytics, joining us virtually to provide the presentation of the Watershed Natural Asset and Analysis and Valuation. I will yield the floor to Tara.
Thank you, Vice Chair Beebe. Okay, perfect. Good morning and thank you. My name is Tara Gady. I'm the Program Coordinator of Watershed Strategies and Climate Research. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome and a thank you to Amy Taylor and Jeff Wilson from Green Analytics. They're the consulting company that undertook this work for us. But before I get into the presentation, I would like to acknowledge that there was a broader NPCA team that provided input into this project, and of course my co-lead, Natalie Green, the Manager of Climate Research or Climate Change and Special Programs. Is the presentation not going to be on? Amy's sharing. Okay, so to start, I'll provide some context as to why we did this project, and then I'll pass it over to Amy and Jeff to go through the various stages of the project, from the inventory approach through to the valuations and output and review the Fort Erie pilot study. Okay. So to start off, what is an asset? So generally, it's an item or property that is useful or valuable to the owner, right? Your house, your car. Asset management simply refers to the accounting standards and processes used through an asset's life cycle, right? From planning and acquisition through to operation, maintenance, disposal, and replacement, right? These really support an organization's financial planning and decision making. So this slide, should I keep going? Can you tell Amy I just emailed her? Can you have her? No. Amy, are you sharing the presentation?
No, I wasn't sure when I was supposed to cue that up, Tara, but I am positioned to. If I share it, is it going to go on the screen?
Yeah, if you just want to start at slide 3, that would be great. Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this slide describes the various steps in the asset management process. This project fulfills the first step, and it will be expanded on and then integrated into our own asset management plans. And the next slide, please. Natural assets, these are the stocks of natural resources that are either owned and managed by the government or they're in private ownership. Right, so our wetlands, our forests, our meadows, or any other green infrastructure. Thankfully, there's not now widespread recognition that nature has value and should be protected, maintained, and invested like other assets, right? We know these provide critical benefits and services to the community, people, the environment, and of course, the local economy. So for example, we have climate change mitigation adaptation, stormwater management, ecosystem health, and human health. If these assets fail to provide these services, there could be critical and severe consequences. Next slide, please. So last July, we retained the expertise of Green Analytics. They're at the forefront of natural asset analysis to conduct a natural asset assessment for our entire watershed. There are multiple objectives for this project, which include, 1, to identify and quantify the types of natural heritage assets across our watershed, right, our wetlands, our forests, our meadows, assess the condition of these assets through a GIS desktop exercise using the best available data and standards, also quantify carbon storage potential and sequestration rates of each respective natural cover, by their ecological land classification code. So this simply is the difference between a coniferous forest and a swamp thicket, right? This is really providing us with a baseline of the potential carbon storage and sequestration rates in our jurisdiction. We also wanted to estimate the value of these natural assets, one based on replacement cost, but also on current levels of service, such as ecosystem services. So carbon sequestration, stormwater management, recreation, and contribution to wild pollination are just examples of this. And last, we wanted all this information synthesized into an online dashboard to be used internally for decision support making for the staff. So the output of this project is really providing us with a means to qualitatively and quantitatively evaluate the natural features within our watershed. This information is critical in supporting NPCA strategic goals, but also support our watershed management programs, land planning programs, land acquisition, our natural asset management programs, and of course, our targeted habitat restoration initiatives. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and Jeff from Green Analytics to go through the project for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Okay, so I'll walk through an overview of the approach and the results from the full scope of the study. The focus on inventory was on natural assets, as well as some enhanced and agriculture assets. So the figure on this slide shows the range of assets that exist from natural to built. These are assets that are managed by local government bodies and municipalities. And you can see that at the one end of the spectrum, natural assets are comprised of things like forests and wetlands. We also refer to enhanced assets, which are things like manicured lawns and green spaces. So to create the inventory, the type, quantity, and location of the assets were delineated using GIS, as Tara noted. And then within the inventory, assets are categorized at 3 different levels, each depicting a different level of detail. So at the highest level, or level 1, an asset is defined as a continuous area of the same land cover type. So here, no distinction is made between a forest or a wetland, but such assets that are in close proximity to each other collectively would be considered an asset. At level 2, a distinction is made between the land cover types. So here, an asset is differentiated between, for example, a forest or a wetland. And at the most detailed level, or level 3, differentiation is made within the level 2 asset. So here we might distinguish between a coniferous forest and a deciduous forest, for example. And so to give you a sense of what that looks like in terms of the inventory, this map shows you the differentiation at level 1 of all of the assets within the NPCA. So here the distinction is made between agriculture assets, natural assets, and enhanced assets. And you can see that collectively those assets cover 82% of the NPCA jurisdiction. So here now we're looking at the level 2 distinction between the natural assets. So you can see there's a lot more detail within the natural asset category. For example, we're breaking down between hedgerows, meadows, wetlands, and those kinds of things. So you can see that distribution. As Tara noted in the introduction, a key deliverable for the project was to quantify carbon storage and sequestration from the natural assets within the NPCA. And what you're seeing here in this slide is total carbon storage, specifically from forest assets, where we can see that well over 13 million tons of carbon are stored within those assets within the NPCA. And where carbon storage is the stock of carbon that's held within natural assets, carbon sequestration measures that flow, the amount of carbon flowing into those assets over a defined period of time. In this case, we looked at that flow of carbon over a year period. And so this map shows forest carbon sequestration rates within the NPCA. We also looked at carbon sequestration for non-forest assets. So here we're capturing, again, that flow of carbon into the natural assets, focusing on things like lawns and meadows. And then because of the prolific nature of wetlands and their importance in terms of carbon sequestration and storage within the NPCA, we are showing here carbon sequestration specifically from wetlands. And so you can see the important role they play in terms of carbon sequestration. As is commonly done for natural asset management plans, we conducted a condition assessment of the natural assets within the NPCA. We looked at 9 different indicators, which you can see in the box on the right side of this figure. The indicators include things like interior habitat, the shape of the natural assets, road density, the permeability of the land adjacent to the natural assets. And we chose those indicators as proxies for ecological health on the assumption that assets that are in good ecological health are able to deliver a good level of ecological services. For each of those indicators, ranking thresholds were established so that we could ultimately assign a rating for each asset on a scale from very good to very poor. And then we're able to roll those up and get an overall condition score for every asset within the asset inventory. And this slide shows you the results of that condition assessment. Overall, according to the indicators that we employed, the natural assets within the NPCA were rated largely fair and good, as you can see in the map, as the significant amount of green and yellow showing in the map, and the same in the figure below, where we demonstrate those condition ratings by overall asset type. In the case of the NPCA, we were lacking an indicator for ecological context. And so in the future, it would be worth looking into different indicators that could be employed to respond to that gap, and that may impact the overall condition rating ultimately. Along with condition assessment, it is common to establish replacement cost values for natural assets within asset inventory. And this figure shows you that the total replacement cost for the natural assets within the NPCA is over $10 billion, with significant value contributions from shorelines, forests, and wetlands. A key deliverable for this project, as Tara noted, was to establish values for the ecosystem services that are delivered by the natural assets within the NPCA. This table shows the range of services that were quantified as part of this project, along with the approaches that were used to establish those values. I'm not going to go into the details of the approaches because in some cases they are rather technical, but to give you a sense of the services that were considered, we looked at 6 different services, including recreation opportunities, carbon storage, air quality regulation, stormwater regulation, the value people place on natural assets for habitat preservation, and contribution to crop productivity. And for each of these services, a value was established, accounting for NPCA-specific considerations. So, for example, when we look at something like air quality regulation, we considered the extent of natural assets in close proximity to the population located within the NPCA. So we're really trying to nuance the approach to get those values to be very NPCA specific. And this figure shows the results of that ecosystem service valuation, demonstrating a value range from $331 to $463 million in service values on an annual basis, with significant contributions from recreation, from stormwater, and from carbon. Okay, so just to summarize then the results of the scope of work for the NPCA, we started with a natural asset inventory where we found that over 83% of the NPCA was comprised of assets, with 52% of those being natural. We looked at the condition of those assets and found that 98% were in good or fair condition. From a carbon storage and sequestration perspective, we estimated a total carbon storage from forest assets exceeding 13 million tons. We looked at the asset replacement value and estimated that they are to exceed $10 billion. And from an ecosystem service delivery perspective, the range of services for the services that we quantified, which of course were not all the services provided by the natural assets within the NPCA, ranged from $331 million to $463 million annual dollars. A case study application was undertaken specifically for Fort Erie in collaboration with the town of Fort Erie. There we looked at completing a natural asset inventory. We did condition and risk assessments. We established levels of service, replacement cost values, and estimated the ecosystem services for the natural assets within the town of Fort Erie. This work will help the town comply with Ontario Regulation 58817, which requires municipalities in Ontario to incorporate and consider green infrastructure in their asset management plans. And that concludes the presentation to give you a sense of the scope and the results from the natural asset study.
Thank you, Amy. At this point, we can take any questions that there may be about the project.
Member Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Chair. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I think it's a little bit, for me, it was really overwhelming how much value there is in that presentation. So having just seen it for a little bit, I'm sure I'll have many questions. But in terms of a study like this, how long, like how old is this methodology that we're using, or how new is it? So the quality of others now going to rely on this. So I'm thinking that we're probably one of the first conservation authorities to be at this point with this kind of reporting, and then maybe even lean into something like municipalities. They all have that regulation sitting, and can they use this kind of information almost immediately that we have it available? So a little bit about the methodology and how current it is, and then how we keep it up to date, because obviously value of these assets is only going to continue to go up, and then maybe how partners can use this information and how soon they'll be able to use it. So 2 parts, if that is clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Metcalf. Natural asset assessment is very new and evolving. A massive literature review was done by the consultants with new information. The data that the values were put to is based on our new land class or ecological land data, which was updated in 2020. In terms of moving forward, what are our next steps? We are open to help, meeting with our municipal partners to, showcase this information, go through with them how we can support them. And the output of this data did support Fort Erie. This was the pilot study, and they're incorporating that into their asset management plan, moving forward. In terms of how do we keep this current, this data and this information will need to be continually updated to reflect any changes that are occurring on the landscape. So we do understand that this is basically a snapshot currently, and it will really need to be something that can be maintained, and we're meeting internally to see what that looks like or how do we go about that. But it is a very complex, data-rich project, and so we are very excited about it, and we obviously think it's very valuable, and we know that we could provide a lot of assistance to the municipalities to sort of navigate through the next steps of the natural asset assessment and how they need to incorporate this into their own natural asset plans. Okay, thank you.
Did you want me to add to that at all, Tara? I could just note a couple of things. One is that the inventory itself was based on the national standard. The Canadian Standard Association has a national standard for inventory creation, which Green Analytics contributed to creating, which was published just last year. And then even more recently this spring, the Natural Assets Initiative, who's a strategic partner of Green Analytics, released a report, a guidebook on incorporating natural assets into asset management plan, which Green Analytics was the lead author on. That report is now available, was released this spring, and contains a appendix that specifically speaks to the role of conservation authorities in natural asset management. So just to reinforce Tara's point about the how recent these approaches are, we're very much at the leading edge with the work that NPCA has undertaken.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Follow up?
Thank you. Thank you for that. So in terms of moving forward, so I'm going to say we're seeing floods and we're seeing floods and we're seeing damage. In terms of keeping these values up to date, is there something like, how does it get updated by the economic part of it? So do we go to like insurance bureaus, and is this how we continue to upgrade the value of these assets as crisis events take hold in Niagara? Is that something that would be a source of updating the values?
I'm actually going to refer to the consultant who is the expert in this area, if that's okay. Amy, do you mind?
Yeah, no, happy to answer. So, yes, I mean, all of that kind of information is very much relevant. So it's quite common when you're valuing, for example, stormwater management, to look at what were the avoided costs of the function that nature provided and helping to manage that stormwater. And certainly, so when we have those major flood events and we see the expenses associated with them, that can help inform that valuation. So certainly it's something that you want to be updating on a regular basis. I would say at a minimum every 5 years, but of course, depending on how rapidly things are changing within the landscape, updating more frequently then that might also be appropriate.
Through you, Chair, can I add something to that as well? I think it also provides that context for climate change adaptation and building the case for having more green infrastructure within Niagara and within our communities to provide that resilience, and to keep in mind that, yes, they're providing economic value, but they provide us with that stormwater retention and that flood protection and erosion protection that we can't get from traditional gray infrastructure as much as we can from a wetland or from a green area. So I think it helps us build that case for more restoration and more protection of natural features across the landscape. And I thought that'd be important to add as well. Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the consultant or our managers here? Seeing none, I'll just thank you, Tara, thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Amy. That was quite a comprehensive and complex report for certain. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jeff.
So at this time, we need a motion that the master natural asset analyst and valuation presentation be received. Just got to have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Member Foster, seconded by Member Seaborn. Thank you. All in favor? It's carried unanimous. Thank you. So I'm also looking for a mover and a seconder for recommendations presented in report FA 3824. I get a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Vice Chair Beatty, seconded by Member Cridlin. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. So that motion FA 38 Watershed Natural Asset Analyst and Valuation be received, and that a copy of report FA 3824 Watershed Natural Asset Analysis and Valuation be circulated to NPC watershed municipalities. All in favor? And that's carried unanimous. Just the delegations that we had this morning. So consent items, we have 4 reports presented for consent this morning. Just a reminder that we have 1 motion before us to receive all 4. If anyone is interested in discussing the contents of these reports, we can do so now before putting a motion to receive all 4 items. So item 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. Can I get a mover and seconder to receive all 4? Moved by Member Seaborn, second by Member Cridlin. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried unanimous. that. So we also need a motion that consent item 8.1 through 8.4 be received. We just did that. Thank you. We have report FA 3224, 25 conservation area fees. First item up for discussion, report FA 3234, proposing conservation area fees to be included in the 2025 budget. I return the floor over to Director Christie and Manager Powell to provide an overview and answer any questions from the board.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this report is for the NPCA Board to consider and approve the proposed 2025 conservation area fees. Just to provide a brief background, if you recall, the NPCA went through a comprehensive fee analysis done by Watson and Associates for years 2022 to 2024. So this is the first year since that that we are looking at putting together a fee schedule from there. So this is really, we use three different kind of factors to determine the 2025 fees. We look to balance inflationary pressures, user demand for service, and comparable services and facilities at other conservation authorities, but also other local services as well. Notably, within the fees, you'll see we kept some equitable initiatives by only increasing our day use fees by 1.72%, and also our Nature Plus fees that get us into all of our actor parks. You will notice a 0% increase for this year. So other than that, happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Christie? Oh, I believe Member Foster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Metcalf, and good morning, by the way. So to Director Christie, we've had discussions over the last couple of years with regards to Long Beach and Chippewa and the methodology that goes into place in and around scheduling and you know, the way that things work with regards to seasonal passes. Are there any proposed changes coming along with that, either next year or the year following?
Thanks for the question. Through you, Chair, there's nothing proposed through these rates. It is on our work plan and agenda to contract a third-party review of our entire camping program and making sure we're still applying best practices by the end of the year.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the follow-up. When's the expected timeline on this? I mean, you're doing this methodology now. I'm assuming then that nothing would be coming into play for 2025, correct?
Through you, Chair, that would be correct. It would be implemented in 2026.
Okay. I just through to Director Christie again. I must say, and you know, we really need to get our heads around the fact that this really truly is public property, and so, you know, I've always been somewhat suspect of this, the practices that are being followed, and I know they've been done for a long time at the Conservation Authority, but again, I'm going to push once more for sooner than later. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Member Foster. Does anyone else have questions? Member Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think I noticed also in the report, Director Christie, is that the change to the nature passes are really, really significant. So what you've done there to, you know, continue more accessibility is very, very notable. Especially, I think there was mention that the renewal has actually gone down a little bit. So I think that's a great move forward for accessibility. So thank you for that. I did want to just sort of, you know, you mentioned it's about based on demand. Maybe you could just comment on the demand for picnic pavilion rentals. I see we have them at only pretty much specific parks. So I might have a follow-up depending on your answer around what the demand is for those picnic rentals. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, I think when it comes to facility rentals in general. We have such a variety in different pavilions and different facilities that's really unique to each park. So I don't know how detailed you want to get into, but for example, like Bimbrook Conservation Area, we release our pavilion schedule sometime in April. It almost sells out right away. Where comparatively to Balls Falls, it seems to be more the wedding facilities that are more popular. So it kind of really depends on the park.
Then thank you for that. And then a follow-up is, as we look through for demand and people, I mean, the demand's just going to probably increase. Maybe there's something we can see later around adding another pavilion if it's not overly expensive, but there'd be a cost benefit to doing something that earlier than later. And again, I'm going to lean in with my foundation hat. These are things that, you know, increasing in, accessibility, enhancing it is something we want to be continuing to look at. So thank you for the details, and we'll look for more reports.
Great. Thanks, Member Cridlin. Are there any other questions for Director Christie? Seeing none, so I look for a mover and seconder to include the motions in the 2025 Conservation Area Fee Report. Could I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Vice Chair Beatty, seconded by Member Foster. All in favor? Thank you. So the motion that report FA 32-2024 regarding the 2025 conservation area fees be received, and that the 2025 conservation area fees outlined in Appendix 1 of report FA 32-24 be approved. All in favor? And that is carried unanimous. So now on to number item 9.3, report FA 3524, delegation of authority under Conservation of Authorities Act. As noted in my update earlier, Director Lee Yates has accepted the Director Watershed Strategies and Climate Change. She has brought forward this report to seek delegated authority that was assigned within the capacity of Director, Planning and Development. Are there any questions for Director Lee Yates regarding report FA 3524? Seeing no questions, I'll just can I get a mover and seconder to accept that report? Member Seaborn, and seconded by Member Cridlin. Thank you. All in favor? So the motion will read that report FA 3524, delegation of authority under Conservation Authorities Act be received, and that the board delegate authority under section 28.4 of the Conservation Authorities Act to Director, Watershed Strategies and Climate Change as a signatory on section 28 work permits for the terms of their employment with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and that the board delegate authority under section 28.4 of the Conservation Authorities Act to Director, Watershed Strategies and Climate Change to carry out administrative reviews of complete permit applications under section 8 of Ontario Regulation 41/24 for the terms of their employment with the NPCA. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So on to item 9.4, report FA 3324, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, appointment of regulation officers. Next, we have a report seeking direction to appoint regulation officers under Section 29 of the Conservation Authorities Act. I will turn it over to Director Christie to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this report is just we had two newer staff members complete their training. So this report is here to officially appoint Joel Bilodeau and Sarah Hutley as officers of the Provincial Offences Officers for the purpose of Section 29. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Christie? Good. Oh, no, okay, done. Good. Okay, seeing none, so I need a mover and seconder for the motion as presented before us. Moved by Member Foster, seconded by Member Cridlin. Thank you. So the motion that report FA 3324 Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority appointment of regulations officers be received, and that the NPC staff named below be appointed under Section 30 of the Conservation Authorities Act for the terms of their employment with the NPCA as officers of the NPCA, provincial offenses officers. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, yes, Member Cridlin.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I think this might be just a little point of order, and I apologize if it's already been covered. I'm just looking at the screen, and I think that is one of the members' grant that is, but I just wanted to clarify who Samsung SM is. So I know it's on the screen, so can we just confirm who that either guest or for the record? Thank you very much.
Okay.
I believe that's Member Grant. So
Oh, okay.
I just wanted it entered into the record. Thank you.
Yeah, I just noticed that too. I thought maybe it wasn't a consultant.
Okay.
Okay, so he is participating then, and it is Member Grant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll get that straightened out. So item 9.5, report FA 4124, contract award 12 Mile Creek Restoration Project. Item 9.5 is related to a contract award for the restoration work along 12 Mile Creek. I will invite Senior Manager Miller to provide a brief overview of the report and answer any questions of the board. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm here to give you a brief overview of this report. So we've got a tributary of 12 Mile Creek in Fawn Hill. 12 Mile Creek, of course, our only cold water system in the watershed. That little stretch, 100 meters, is severely eroded. Now, even though it's a short stretch, the erosion resulting from this little watercourse carries on far downstream, and all that erosion serves to negatively impact the spawning beds of the native brook trout. So our local chapter of Trout Unlimited noticed this and mobilized to do something about it. So Trout Unlimited obtained partnerships and funding to address this eroded. Over the course of 100 meters, it falls 20 feet. So the velocity and energy that the water flows across and down this section serves to erode out the creek. So funding was obtained from a number of funding partners: Town of Pelham, the Region of Niagara, the federal government, and some local corporate sponsors. All set to go. Trout Unlimited retained the engineering firm of Water's Edge to undertake an environmental design, a series of step riffle pools that would serve to mitigate the erosion. All was good. Now, while Trout Unlimited, their strength is obtaining partnerships and funding, they don't have experience in undertaking large construction projects. They approached the Conservation Authority and asked that we would help them with the implementation phase of this project. The Conservation Authority agreed. Taking the role of project manager, we tendered the project. That was in June 3rd. The project tender closed July 3rd, and we received 8 compliant bids as per our procurement policy. Those bids were evaluated, again, as per our procurement policy, and a top-ranked bidder emerged. What we're doing here is we're seeking board authorization to endorse the award of this construction contract to R&M Construction. R&M Construction, through that process, was the top-ranked bidder. R&M, their specialty is creek restoration and construction. They're from Acton, family company. They've been in business over 40 years. One of the premier construction companies dealing with stream restoration, shoreline restoration. And so that is a brief summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Excellent. Steve, are there any questions? Oh, sorry, I got to shut mine off. Member Cridlin?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. Just again, how we do these projects, this looks like a very specialized, it's going to be quite the showcase once this is done, it sounds like, so that's very exciting. Can you just briefly outline then, in general, how the liability works in a project like this? And again, I'm sure it would apply to all of our projects, but could you just remind the board how the liability works? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. And through you, Mr. Chair. And so typically when we award a contract, there's a contract agreement between the contractor and the Conservation Authority that outlines the liability that requires the contractor to carry insurance, naming the Conservation Authority as a co-insured. In addition, this project is being undertaken on private lands. Trout Unlimited has engaged the landowners, and landowners have agreed to allow this project to be undertaken on their property, managed by the Conservation Authority. Part of those landowner agreements also outline the liability, the insurance requirements, co-naming the Conservation Authority and the landowners with that. And so liability in these situations is most certainly recognized and addressed.
Thanks, Steve, for that. And just on another note, that it isn't costing the NPCA anything. This is all funded through Trout Unlimited.
Thanks. Absolutely. The financial impact to the Conservation Authority is negligible. We're providing in-kind support, project management, and communications. The funding for this project is provided by our funding partners, the Town of Pelham, the Region of Niagara, the federal government through their Environmental Damages Fund, and through donations by our corporate sponsors, local corporate sponsors, Lafarge Canada and Walker's Industry, both supplying the specialized aggregate needed to undertake this project.
That's fantastic news. Thanks, Steve. Are there any more questions for Mr. Miller? No, I don't see any. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder on the motion that contained in report FA 4124. Get a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Cridlin, seconded by Member Seaborn. Thank you. So the motion, the former Niagara chapter of Trout Unlimited Canada has worked with the NPCA, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and the Town of Pelham to lead the planning and background technical studies for the 12 Mile Creek Restoration Project. Whereas NPCA is supporting the implementation of 12 Mile Creek Restoration Project in a project management capacity on behalf of funding partners, Town of Pelham, Niagara Region, federal government through the Environmental Damages Fund in accordance with NPCA policies and procedures. Be it resolved that report number FA 4124, contract award 12 Mile Creek Restoration Project be received, and that a contract awarded to R&M Construction in the amount of $224,508 plus non-recoverable HST be approved, and that a contingency of 15% or $33,676 be allocated to the overall project cost, address any unanticipated costs during the project implementation process, And further, that staff be authorized to execute all necessary documents to award the contract. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Seeing none? That's carried unanimous. So item number 9.6, report FA 3424, Integrated Watershed Monitoring and Reporting Program. So for the next item, I would like to invite Director Lee Yates to do a introduction, please.
Thank you, through the chair. This program has been evolving over the last couple years. It's really built on all the successes we currently have with our current monitoring programs, like the water quality monitoring program, our groundwater monitoring program, our hydrometric monitoring program, our ecological monitoring in our conservation areas. And this is a program that's coming forward from direction from the strategic plan. And I won't go into too many details because I don't want to steal Josh's thunder, because I did a little bit of that yesterday at another meeting, so I won't take it all. But Josh and his team have been instrumental in pulling together what will be our integrated watershed monitoring program moving forward, and the vision we see us going forward and providing additional services in an enhanced program. So with that, I'll invite Josh to the podium and I will share his slide deck.
Thank you, Leilani, and welcome, Josh.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, NPCA board members, thank you for allowing this opportunity to provide an overview of the NPCA's Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program, and this provides great background for report FA 34-24. Next slide, please. Monitoring is so important. Monitoring allows us to detect changes in ecosystems, including shifts in biodiversity and overall watershed health. Monitoring can allow for intervention and mitigation strategies to prevent further ecosystem decline. Monitoring helps safeguard the public's health, safety, and property by identifying and mitigating risk associated with environmental hazards such as flooding, erosion, and water pollution. Monitoring provides crucial data that informs decision-making processes. By understanding the current state of the environment and predicting future trends, effective policies, regulations, and management practices can be developed to address environmental challenges and promote sustainability. Next slide, please. So why an enhanced integrated watershed monitoring program? The NPCA's strategic plan identifies the need to address watershed data gaps to support evidence-based decision-making for climate-resilient watersheds. The strategic plan further establishes specific goals to expand and enhance monitoring, associated tools to fill information gaps and research needs, lead water quality and quantity throughout the NPCA jurisdiction, support municipal partners with watershed data collection and analysis to understand cumulative impacts, and develop a solid understanding of climate impacts and the risks on NPCA watersheds. In addition, the Conservation Authorities Act and Ontario Regulation 686-221 for mandatory programs and services requires the NPCA to develop a watershed-based resource management strategy that will need to be supported by an enhanced watershed monitoring program to address data gaps and support decisions for a healthy watershed. Next slide, please. Work began on this in 2023 to develop this enhanced integrated watershed monitoring. The first part of this work was an inventory of existing monitoring programs, and the categories shown on the slide show the current monitoring programs at the NPCA, and they include the water quality monitoring programs, the surface water and groundwater. We have the hydrometrics, the water quantity program, ecological program for our conservation lands, some environmental compliance, stewardship and community science, restoration, some service provided, and GIS work. Next slide, please. The NPCA also conducted a gap analysis to identify monitoring gaps and deficiencies, and our team prioritized the following. The data gaps we prioritized include long-term environmental data across a number of different areas, watershed coverage of monitoring programs, and updated GIS data sets. Deficiencies that were noted were integration of monitoring programs at the NPCA, monitoring support for internal programs, mechanisms to provide monitoring services to external partners, and a deficiency in data management systems. We can do better with improved data management systems. Additionally, the NPCA formed an internal integrated watershed monitoring advisory group. We have facilitated sessions to extract input and information from staff to guide the formation of this program. We also had municipal partner meetings with their staff who expressed interest in the NPCA's monitoring programs and services. We engaged with the NPCA's Public Advisory Committee, and we also formed an internal project intake team. Next slide, please. Based on all this, the NPCA established this model that you see on the slide, or framework for the NPCA's Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program. This model is a visual tool that shows the integration of monitoring programs across the NPCA. It has the overall objective of the NPCA's Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program is to comprehensively assess ecological health and resilience of the watershed through monitoring initiatives to inform evidence-based conservation and management strategies for the NPCA watershed. This model here includes three key monitoring areas. They include long-term monitoring and reporting, corporate support services, and monitoring service provider. And those are those three blue boxes at the bottom of the model. And I'll go into those in more detail. Next slide, please. The long-term monitoring and reporting program area holds significant value for assessing and understanding and managing natural hazards and ecosystems within the NPCA watershed. The goals of this program are to establish baseline conditions by understanding natural variability, ecological thresholds within the watershed. Another goal is to assess temporal and spatial conditions of aquatic and terrestrial resources at various locations across the watershed compared to established baseline conditions, and also to identify potential stressors and emerging threats that could be addressed through other programs. And this long-term monitoring and reporting program area consists of surface water monitoring, groundwater monitoring, terrestrial monitoring, hydrometric, that's our water quantity, and watershed landscape analysis. And Tara's presentation earlier is a good reflection of the landscape analysis, these big, large projects over the landscape, looking at landscape data sets. Next slide, please. The second monitoring area is corporate support services. This monitoring area is comprised of several programs that will service the NPCA with crucial monitoring data to inform operational activities across multiple departments and divisions. As an example, there's a lot of these program areas, but conservation area management plans, we're working on those through another program, but that program is going to require monitoring and inventory data. So we are able to utilize this Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program to use staff and internal resources to get data for those conservation area management plans. And that's the same for the other categories in this monitoring area. The third monitoring area, next slide please, is the monitoring service provider. And the goal of the monitoring service provider area is to provide environmental monitoring services to external partners within the watershed. Now, we already do this. We provide monitoring services to the City of Hamilton, where we monitor the Glanbrook landfill, a part of the monitoring program there. We also do work at the Hamilton Airport, where we work with monitoring some of the creeks downstream of the airport. And we also provide monitoring services for Niagara region of surface water. But we're also envisioning that there's going to be a number of monitoring services from our external partners coming our way in the future, from municipalities especially. And this includes secondary plans and sub-watershed plans where characterization might be needed. There's also the consolidated linear infrastructure, environmental compliance approval applications for stormwater management. There's also municipal greening targets where inventory work may come our way. Low impact development the municipalities are working on may require performance monitoring that the Conservation Authority can help out in. There's also long-term monitoring in growth areas that might be a possible area for us to partner. Next slide, please. For the enhanced integrated watershed monitoring program to be successful, it requires monitoring support systems. And this was higher up in that bigger model earlier slide, but just wanted to highlight these key support systems: GIS and data management, communications, corporate services, and then external data and partnerships are all key to allowing this enhanced integrated watershed monitoring program to function effectively. Next slide, please. And going forward, the NPCA will continue to implement the enhanced integrated watershed monitoring program recommendations and actions by 2031. Additional program development and scoping will be accounted for in future budgets, supported by a long-term budget plan guided by the watershed-based resource management strategy. And where there are opportunities, specialized monitoring services for municipalities and external stakeholders will be on a fee-for-service basis based on board-approved fee schedules. Next slide, please. And Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you for your attention. And I'd just like to acknowledge my colleagues who assisted with this project. I pestered them for about a year and a half, extracting information and collaboration. And I just want to also just acknowledge them and thank them for their help on this project. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Josh. Are there any questions? That's better. I can see everybody now. Member Cridlin has a question or a comment?
Maybe it's just because I'm the only one here, but anyway, thank you very much through you, Chair. First of all, just thank you for that presentation today, and again, just a gigantic piece of work to have accomplished with you and your team and the leadership. And, you know, again, seeing it that it's an integration project. It happens to be water management, but what you've brought to the level of integration, I was really pleased to see that you've taken this to the PAC, for example. That's part of integration. And, you know, in future meetings, we'll talk more, I'm sure, about this science and this integration and the benefits. And I'm going to just look to lean into the stewardship and the community science part of the whole plan. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Member Cridlin. Are there any more questions for Josh? Seeing none, so I need a mover and seconder for the presentation, report FA 3424. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Vice Chair Beatty, seconded by Member Foster. Thank you. So the motion that, thanks again, Josh. Motion that report FA 3424, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program be received, and that the Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program and associated implementation recommendation be endorsed. And further, that the staff report FA 3424, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Enhanced Integrated Watershed Monitoring Program be circulated to NPC watershed municipalities for their information. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 10, committee reports. An addendum distributed earlier this week included a committee report from the CAO Selection Oversight Committee. I will look for a mover and seconder on the motion to receive the minutes and approve the terms of reference as endorsed by the committee. So I could get a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Member Seaborn, seconded by Member O'Neill. I see your hand moving there. That's good enough. So, any discussion, any questions for the committee or anybody? Okay. Seeing none, so the motion that the CAO Selection Oversight Committee minutes dated July 17th, 2024 be received, and that the CAO Selection Oversight Committee terms of reference as appended in report number SC 0124 be approved. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Motions of consent. Are there any motions to be brought forward for the board's consideration? Seeing none, we'll move on. Does anyone have a notice of motion they'd like to present at this time? Okay, seeing none. So we'll move into new business. Do we have a verbal update from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation? Member Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Our big news, our big story today is that we had 19 applications received from grade 12 students right across the watershed. So we're really happy to get that kind of participation. 6 have been provided bursaries that we will deliver over the next couple months. And again, so positive to see the comments and the aspirations of these young people coming out of high school. So across quite a diverse fields of study, including environmental, urban change, York University applicant, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Education, Queen's University applicant, Fish and Wildlife, Fleming College, Environmental and Earth Science, McMaster University, Environmental Science, University of Guelph, Earth Sciences, Brock University. So we've got a lot of talent in Niagara and the watershed. So hopefully we will meet these 6 change makers in the fall in person. Thank you.
Thanks, Member Cridlin. That, it's very exciting news as well. Is there any other new business that members would like to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here. I know I was late with some car issues this morning, but I had the opportunity to attend the Geopark gathering at Niagara College Culinary School the other evening, and got to meet some very interesting people, and had quite a chat with one of the evaluators, Sarah from Ireland, and they were on a whirlwind tour of the Niagara region, and were very impressed with our facilities that they attended. So hopefully they will get the UNESCO, the Geopark will get the UNESCO stamp of approval and move forward from there. So just a couple of things I wanted to bring forward. So it was a well-attended event, by the way. So. Okay, so seeing no other new business, we're going to move into closed session now, so we will not be coming back into open session. So at this time, we'll take a couple minutes to move into that closed session forum, and would ask visitors to leave.